Welcome to my show. I don't have a name for it yet. I don't have a real plan either, and I'm going to get into that a little bit. We're going to talk about music here, but this particular episode, if you will, it's going to be more like a vlog, because I feel like before this gets started, I have to lay groundwork. I have to lay some philosophical background. You'll come to find I'm a very philosophical person. I try to think through things from a lot of different angles. So we have to flesh out some things first before we get into what I really want to get into. But I think it'll all be worth it. Coffee. Coffee is necessary for life. Black coffee. Strong black coffee. I also don't like video cuts. So something that I want to try to keep consistent with all of this, depending on the length of time and where content goes, is I don't want to do video cuts. Not that it feels disingenuous to me, but right now it's just too much work. And I don't want this to become work just yet. So where do we start? First of all, I want this to be genuine. I don't want to have a persona, although simply because of the nature of the medium, there is some persona that is created because you, the viewer, don't know who I am outside of what you see in the camera. So what I want to do is make this person as genuine as possible and not become a facsimile of the kind of person that I am. So that's super important. I'm holding the microphone for now. I've got a stand. I may use that down the road. I don't really know. It just depends on where this goes. So I don't want to create a persona. I don't know that I necessarily want a title or a name for all of this. And notice I haven't even introduced myself yet, and I don't even know if I want to do that. There are a lot of different things around this that I don't know about, but I've spent far too much time trying to know these things and be okay with knowing them, and not enough time actually doing something, which is how we're starting this. Well, why are you doing this now? I've had this for months. I've had this idea for a very, very long time. But I have gotten too caught up in the planning of it and how it looks and how it's perceived, that I need to just do something. And if I continue to do things, good or bad, if I continue to do things good or bad, then eventually I will find what works and what doesn't, what I like and what I don't, what is successful and what's not successful. So that's sort of my ultimate goal, is I have to just get started. There are other reasons around why I haven't gotten into this yet, and I think they need to be talked about. The most important thing for me to flesh out and talk about is really what happened 5 years ago. Today is December 7th, 2024. It's actually my 31st birthday. But we all went through a global pandemic. We're still existing through a global pandemic. And that changed how we all lived our lives. It changed everything we do, everything we think about. It changed how we go about our day to day, how we consume media, how we are consumers in general. It changed everything about our lives. And there are people who were able to exist through that time with minimal disruption to who they are and what their ethos is and what their day-to-day looks like. And there are people that did not do that very well. There are people that had a very difficult time acclimating to society again, had a very difficult time mentally and emotionally with those things. I have not gone to seek professional help in this area, but I think in self-reflection and in reading a lot about what other folks have gone through, both during the time of the pandemic and when society has opened itself up again, I think I fell into that category of a person that probably went a little bit crazy during the pandemic time. And I think that it affected me for a long time afterwards. I think it's still affecting me. I know I have much more social anxiety now. I don't enjoy the same things I used to enjoy in that time because the same scenario isn't available. There are now different constraints around how we interact with people that didn't exist before that time. And I think that took a large toll on me mentally. So TLDR, I feel like during the pandemic, I kind of went crazy. And I think I acted in ways that are not consistent with the kind of person that I am or want to be. You can dissect the philosophy of that any way you'd like to. But a lot of what has kept me from being in a public forum like this is a word that I don't think I hear a lot of people talk about consistently, because we talk a lot about anxiety. We talk a lot about depression. There are certain buzzwords that we hit on a lot, but I think the one we don't talk about is shame. And I think that it's either a lack of recognition or a lack of wanting to talk about shame. This is not a mental health bulletin. I just need to touch on this. I think what has prevented me from putting myself in a public forum confidently is shame. Very ashamed of things that happened in my life in that time, between failed relationships, failed jobs, things like that. But all of that to say, I don't know what we do with shame. I don't know how we handle shame. It's something that is heavy and weighs on us. However, we have to choose to let life continue in hopefully a more healthy way, in a way that's more consistent with how we want to act in society. So I have not finished my battle with shame. I don't know that you ever do finish that. It's like that visual of how we deal with grief, that the grief doesn't go away, but our life grows larger around the grief. I think a helpful way for me to think about shame is in a similar fashion. So those things are going to still persist. It makes it very difficult to do this. I'm currently very, very scared. This is not an easy thing to do for me, but I have these ideas and I have these things that I want to share with people. And I think that there is a space in a public forum for them to exist. So I want to put them out there, which sort of leads me to, what is this? What are we doing? I want to talk about music, and I want to talk about music in a way that is unconventional to what I currently see on the internet, how music is currently talked about. I myself, I have played instruments. I wouldn't call myself a musician because I haven't played an instrument in a very long time. But I have been a member of musical ensembles. I existed in the competitive music arena for a long time, both as a performer, as an instructor. And that space led me to thinking about music in a different way, in different ways. And when I talk to other people about music, when I show other people music that I'm really excited about and come at it from this different angle, it gets a different reaction. It makes people think in a more, in a deeper way. I don't know that I have a better word for it right now. It makes people think about the music in a deeper way. And for me, a lot of my enjoyment in music in the past 10 years or so has to do with a lot of musicians and artists that you don't know and you won't know. I like finding up and coming budding artists, and I like supporting them, and I like interacting with how their experience with music is different than mine or ours. So that is really important to me, and how that ties into this competitive realm of music is to do something competitively, you have to either be in competition with with an opponent, or with the other. You have to be in competition with someone or with another entity, or you're in competition with a score sheet. And in competitive music, like competitive dance and things like that, you're in competition with a score sheet. And I was never a judge. I never did any of those things. But when you are an instructor and you're putting together a show, there's the show that you write, there's the content that you write and you teach, but there's also the show that you know is going to be judged. There's the show that you create for the judge's sheet, right or wrong. Ultimately, if you want to win, you have to score well. So if you want to score well, you've got to tick the boxes on the sheet, right? So as a rough overview, in competitive music, they judge your musical content. They judge how you're able to achieve or perform that content. They judge the visual content, what the movement is like for marching band and for color guard and things. There's drill. They judge the achievement of that drill. Do you make the pictures on the field? Those sorts of things. What are your body movements or dance movements like? And that over the last 20 years has gotten way more complicated than it was before. But there's one part of the judging that always caught my attention, and something that I've carried over to my experience with music in general, and that is the idea of general effect. Well, what's general effect? Let me tell you. General effect is what it sounds like, kind of. Is what you're doing creating an effect, and how is that effect felt or seen by the audience? General effect can be a number of things. It can be a very dynamic moment in music or visual. It can be the building to of something and the climax of it. General effect can be a lot of different things. But when you carry that idea of general effect over to albums, singles, songs, what does that look like? What I have found in my own experience with music is the moments in a song that are meaningful to me are not always the climax of the song. They're not always the part of the song that we're supposed to hear or listen to, right? I think that's important to flesh out, right? So as I've explained this to other folks, as I've tried to workshop this idea, my goal is to develop the idea of general effect for you so that you can take this idea and apply it to other places. Ultimately, my goal for you as the viewer of this is to look at music differently. I would love for other people to have the same experience as I do with music, because like I said, finding up-and-coming artists who are passionate about what they do and have a different interaction with music than I do is very fulfilling. I want to support those folks. I also want to seek them out. I want to, not because I'm going to find the next big thing. I'm not Simon Cowell. I don't own a record label. I don't have any aspirations to do that right now. But I want you to be able to identify those people and reward them for their achievement. That is something that was big for me in the instructional realm, is I can see that you have achieved something. I want to reward that achievement. That's what I want to find in music. That's what I want to convey to other people in music, is something has been achieved here. We need to reward it. Defining that achievement, defining what makes that is subjective. It's individual to all of us. But I want to share those ideas and moments that I find have achieved something with you. You can go find the same things. Talk to people about them. Share music. Art is a necessity in life. We need art. Art makes life worth living. I want us to not just enjoy art for how it paints our lives, but I want us to enjoy art for what it contributes to life. As we move forward in society over decades and decades and decades, how we viewed art and how we have given worth to art has changed drastically. I believe we need to live in a society that rewards art. Art that we like, art that we don't like. I'm going to have opinions here that you don't like. I'm also going to say things that are wrong. There's a difference. And I've thought about that a lot too, is you can have a differing opinion of somebody. It doesn't mean they're wrong. It's an opinion. There's a difference between having a bad opinion and being wrong. So consider that. But something to like highlight what this is, and my plan for this is I want to go through my listening journey over the past however many years. And I say however many because what I want to do is, I've been a Spotify user for a very, very, very long time. And there was a time when Spotify switched from starred songs to liked songs, and your old star songs became their own separate playlist, and now we just have liked songs. I want to start at the very bottom of my liked songs list, which, what is that, 10 years ago? I want to go back 10 years ago. I want to start from the bottom of that list, and I want to talk about every song. Now, there are going to be some hiccups in there where I have a full album saved, and those will be separate things. I do want to do album reviews in whole, but that's not really the intention of this. But to highlight what I'm talking about in this general effect realm is I want to talk about the song. Just to Be Needed by Death's Dynamic Shroud. It's a strange song. It's a really weird one. I think what we'll come to find in a lot of these songs that I want to talk about is the form of the song is non-traditional. For those entering into this, song form is like your intro, chorus 1, or intro, verse 1, pre-chorus, chorus, verse 2, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, chorus 3, outro. Like, that is your song form, right? And if you listen to any popular songs, you should be able to identify the form. This is where we have an instrumental opening. This is where the verse starts. Hey, they repeat this part before the chorus every time, so that must be a pre-chorus. There's the chorus. Like, you can identify these things, right? So a lot of what I am going to show you is not going to be traditional song form. Sometimes that is a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing. Or it doesn't carry as much weight in the song as maybe others can. So this song, Just to Be Needed, it does not have a traditional form in that it's sort of like a verse A, verse B, bridge, verse 2A, verse 2B, bridge. There's a lot of different segments to it. But what I intend to do, and what Death's Dynamic Shroud does as a group, is very similar. They've stated that their real intention in creating music is to reveal things that are unseen to us in music. It's not about something you can hear. It's not about something you can see. It's about something you can feel. And I think that's where I'm at, is I want to give you a guide for something you can feel and how to talk about that, how to identify those things. So that's what this is all about. They want to provide you with a realm into music that you don't just perceive, but you feel. And I know the first time I listened to this, I was completely caught off guard. It made me cry. And still, when I get caught off guard by listening to the song and I choose to continue, I choose to enter into that, it almost always chokes me up or makes me cry. And it's not because it's talking about like dying or something like that. It's just so moving. And it's that connection that is big for me. So when you go through the song, Just to Be Needed, it starts out with just like acoustic guitar plucking, one male vocal, and No More Crying for You, made my way back home, leave the light on for me, now that we're together, I don't want to wait too long. So you kind of get these relationship feelings from it. And as it continues, it builds some. It is dynamic. That kind of builds into that general effect idea that I was talking about. That, now you start to get a harmony, and then you have some percussion come in that's like slow halftime, big, almost orchestral drums, like a march, or a procession of sorts. And as this continues on, like, you could stop with just that first statement, right? Guitar, male vocal, drums, procession, fade out, and like that's a complete musical thought. If the song ended after a minute and a half, I think it would still have a lot of fulfillment in it, but it doesn't. Of course not. Why else would I be talking about it? So after that all proceeds, the percussion backs out, some of the strings back out, the harmony backs out, and you just have, the last two lines from this beginning male vocalist. And as it sort of peters out, you quickly hear this ramp up, this pitch shift into something more strings based. And you have this female voice with a very rigid, very rocky vocal tone. And I mean, it clearly lets you know we're not done yet. We only just got started. What's cool about this, and you can find this online, lots of places. This is obviously an electronic-based group, so they use a lot of sampling. They sample Ariana Grande in here, and if you didn't hear it for the first time, if you didn't know that, you could probably pick that up. They're like, wait a second, that's a female vocal I've heard. I know that line. Where did it come from? So there's some of that in here too. That's to say, the middle section of this song is a whirlwind. There are so many things going on and being added. And there are times where it is more chaotic, and there are times where it's sort of like Connect 4, or Plinko. You can see everything falling down into place. And once it gets set on that foundation, it's locked in, which is very satisfying. So you start to hear more of these female vocals, and it continues with that title line, Just to Be Needed. Ho, ho, just to be needed. There's this choir kind of starting. That feeling is being built up. This effect is starting to come together. A big highlight of this one for me is sort of the second or third time through, you hear the female vocals. You start to get this arpeggiator, which is awesome. It's very short, it's very sharp, and it sort of plinks along just perfectly with these female vocals. It leaves a lot of space in the top end, which is something that I'll sort of talk about from a listening stage environment aside. I'm not Adam Neely, and I'm not Jacob Collier. I don't have a lot of musical education background. I don't know all the chord structures and things, but I'll create a language to talk about that sort of stuff so that you can follow along with me. Or if you know about it and you want to tell other people about it in the comments about how I'm right or wrong or what have you, go for it. That's fine. But as the arpeggiator starts and you have these female vocals as well, the decay on their vocals is kind of sharp, so you don't get a lot of hangover or reverb. And there's a moment where there's a lot of space created for more to enter in down the line. And then the male vocals start to come back from the beginning. Some of the percussion starts to come back from the beginning. And then it's gone again. So you have this wave pattern of how this song is going. The beginning with the male vocals, the procession drowns out, and then you get the introduction of the female vocals and a little bit of whirlwind, and then that goes away too, and you're left with just this synth pad and a little bit of bass background that kind of leads you to the next section. As I picture it, I picture that whirlwind of all these things happening around you. As it drowns out, like you're kind of heading down the corridor or through the trees into the clearing. Like they've showed you all these things around you, and then they close it down, They close all that space down so that you're only left to follow that one path they're leading you to. And you don't know how it's going to open, but you see the light there. Like, you see the opening. So when you finally get there, you get a little blurb of electronic stuff that's like, okay, here it comes. They don't just drop it on you. But when everything opens up again, big orchestral percussion, you have the female vocals, you have the male vocals, you have all the samples layered in around there. What is striking to me about that is there's almost no low end. You have high strings with some vibrato up top, you have the female vocals up top, and the male vocals and the percussion sit somewhere that's like sub-middle. It's not the most full sound they could give to you, which is intentional, like, clearly. It's what you're supposed to hear. But that opening, and specifically the chord they choose on that synth pad with the strings, has this lovely angelic chorus feeling to it. But it's not over yet, right? They do this chorus 2 times through, and then they add back in all the sections, all the sections and all the features, sectures. They throw everything at you in the last 2 times through the chorus. And it's just, when I pictured in my head, I always put these pictures together of, you can imagine all 4 or 5 of these vocalists either in studio booths by themselves or in separate areas of this place that they've led you to. And some of them are just peacefully singing, right? It's everyone is giving their talent and passion from here, right? So I can hear the lower male vocalist being very sweet, very smooth, right? It's been the consistent theme throughout this song, part of that procession, right? When you think of a march or procession, it's driving, it is moving towards something. So even as they get to this end, those male vocals are still proceeding down the path, unchanged. They have their ethos, they know what they're saying, they know what their intention is. So that's continuing to drive through that. But at the same time, you have another female vocal, Just to Be Needed, is very comforting. It's very warming. It's like a blanket being wrapped around you, because in that voice, I hear and perceive an arrival. I hear and perceive an acceptance. That ultimately all of this striving, all of this construction that has happened, all this composition has brought you to that point of just to be needed. Either having that feeling, owning that feeling now of being needed, being wrapped in that, or knowing that the possibility to be needed, the possibility that what you have can be needed, is fulfillment in itself. That's what I'm hearing and getting from that female vocal. And then you've got what they've cut up from Ariana. That is, her classic passionate runs and her high voice and things. She's not in this song for very long. She doesn't say a lot, right? But that adds that layer of passion of both sides of things, of that persistence and consistency in action and thought, and the comfort of being needed. She kind of makes the parallel between those two things. And when all those voices come together, it creates something that is incredibly moving. While I would still argue is lacking a lot of musical tropes and a lot of composition that would get us to just fall into this thing. Like I said, there's not a lot of low end. It's not a bass heavy song. This is all sort of up here. It's up here flying around the room, right? And I think that's the intention of how they put the song together. So I would highly encourage you, and when I say these things, I don't take them lightly, and I don't want you to take them lightly either as the listener. When I talk about songs like this, or when I highlight these songs and I have a very passionate reaction to them, it's meant to be shared. It's meant to be experienced for yourself. I don't want to say individually, but it's meant to be experienced. So I would highly encourage you to center yourself for an experience and find a quiet place and some headphones and whatever you do to get into a listening environment, which this sounds so avant-garde and everything like that, but it's important to me. So that's why I'm doing this. It's important to me. I encourage you to get yourself into a listening space where you are open to having an experience and listen to it and let it take you a couple different places and let it make you emotional. Let your thoughts take you where they want to. I think that's a powerful thing about art. And I think that's something that a lot of, casual interactors with art don't experience enough. So I want to touch on a lot of different songs that have these massive feelings, this big general effect for me, and I want to share them with you. And another one that I'm going to talk about down the line, I didn't want to make it the very first one because I think it's definitely more known. But one song that I always struggle with is 33, God, by Bon Iver. And for me, that has massive general effect, but it's not in the place that I think a lot of people experience that. That's all to say. I want you to go listen to Death's Dynamic Shroud, Just to Be Needed. Get yourself into a quiet place where you can have an experience. Because I think that you will. I think that most people will. All this is to say, I'm going to go through a lot of these artists that you may not have heard of before. I highly, highly encourage you that if I talk about an artist or a song that you go forward and you like and enjoy, pardon me, please go support these artists in an ethical way. And that sounds, very woke, leftist, whatever. I don't care. Go support these artists in an ethical way. For me, if you know anything, flag back there, Ruby Yacht flag. I followed Rory Ferreira in that group for 10 years or so. I very happily give them my money because I want to support them. And I think they're cool people and I want them to continue to be able to make art. So for me, doing things like that is a way for me to hand them money for what they do. Not a record label, not a third party, those sorts of things. Sometimes there is no other way to ethically support an artist than to pay a third party or pay a record label. But I would encourage you, it's very important to find the way to support artists that benefits the artist the most. So when I say go support people ethically, that's what I mean. If you can buy from an artist directly, please do that. If there's no other way to do it, then buy merch, buy shirts and things, do whatever you can to support these people. It's very important to me. It's very important to them. Going forward, I want to do this at once a week, either on Saturdays or Sundays or on a Wednesday. The venue may change. This is sort of the CNC room, if you will, where gaming takes place. Maybe down the line, I'll do some streaming for gaming. I have a younger brother as well who does the same sort of thing. We may investigate ways to collaborate on some stuff. So the venue may change. Sometimes the topics may change and things. I want to use this space to talk about whatever I feel is important because that's what it is. And if you like it, you'll continue to listen. And if you don't, you won't. But I had to do this. This is something that had to be done. And now that I've started it, I just have to keep doing it. So down the line, there will be social media channels. I'm not interested in that right now. I don't want to cut up a video into 24 TikToks or Instagram Reels. I'm just not interested in it. Down the line, when that makes more sense for me and the time that I want to put into this, then maybe we'll do that. No social handles for now. May get there at some point, but there are still a lot of things that I need to just take care of, take better care of before I'm confident in doing that. So drop comments, tell me what you like, tell me what you didn't like, tell me your thoughts. I may listen to them, I may not. I don't have to, but I could. Yeah, share with your friends. Listen to Death Dynamic Shroud, Just to Be Needed. This whole album, released in 2021, is really great. Talk to your friends about good music. Go seek out good music. And until next week, everyone take care. Love your neighbors. And I'll see you then. Thanks for listening.